Welcome to our YouTube channel Mathematical Pathshala. In the previous lecture, we discussed about the stereographic projection and how we can extend our complex plane, which is known as extended complex plane, which is generally denoted by C hat, or you can denote by C infinity. So this represents complex numbers union infinity. So that is how we got how to involve the point at infinity in our complex numbers. So this is now meaningful. And also we discussed about the limit of a complex function. Suppose you are having a complex function of a complex variable or a real variable, that is both case we can do, because our variable, if it is complex, then we can assume it to be real also if I take our y is 0. Let f and g be two functions such that limit at z approaches z naught, fz is a, limit z approaches z naught, gz is b. So I am assuming this z naught is a limit point of my domain, and this limit exists, and this limit is equal to a, and this limit is equal to b, and k be a fixed complex number. Then limit z approaches z naught, k times fz will be k times a. Property number 2, limit z approaches z naught, fz plus minus gz, that means either fz plus gz or fz minus gz. This will give you a plus minus b. So sign will be preserved in the both sides. Property number 3, limit z approaches z naught, fz gz is equal to a times b. And next property is limit z approaches z naught, fz upon gz will be a by b if gz is non-zero for all z inside the domain D. So these are called the algebra of limits, and the proof is very easy. So I am not going to do the proof. The proof is directly from the definition of the limit. So this is about the algebra of limits. Now let me discuss some properties for the limit at point infinity and when limit is infinity. Let f is a function defined from D to C. That is, this is a complex function of a complex variable. Z naught is a limit point of D, or you can also write this f is defined in some deleted neighborhood of z naught. Then we say limit z approaches z naught, fz is infinity. What is the meaning of this statement? Can you elaborate? When the limit is infinity, if for each epsilon positive there exists a delta positive such that z minus z naught are less than delta, and you can treat this quantity is bigger than 0, that means you are defining your function in some deleted neighborhood of z naught. That means this z naught may not be a member of D. This implies mod fz is bigger than 1 by epsilon. That means however epsilon you choose, however small you choose, I can always make the mod of fz is bigger than 1 by epsilon, and 1 by epsilon is a very bigger quantity because epsilon is a very small quantity. So this is the meaning that the limit as z approaches z naught, fz approaches infinity. Definition 2, let f is defined from D to C infinity is a limit point of D, that means every deleted neighborhood of infinity intersects D. That means if you take any neighborhood around infinity and remove infinity from that neighborhood, that should intersect your D. For example, if you choose your D to be a complex number, then infinity is a limit point, because whichever neighborhood you choose of infinity, that will definitely intersect your D. We say limit z approaches infinity, fz is w naught, where w naught is a fixed complex number, if for each epsilon positive there exists a delta positive, such that, now what you are doing, you are approaching to infinity, so you should think how can you make a little change in this definition. Fz minus w naught is less than epsilon whenever mod z is bigger than 1 by delta. So this is the definition, that limit at infinity. And similarly, I can combine both these two definitions. That means I will assume my limit z approaches infinity and my limit is infinity. So definition 3, let f is defined from D to C. Infinity is a limit point of D. We say limit z approaches infinity, fz is infinity if for each epsilon positive there exists a delta positive, such that fx minus or mod z is bigger than 1 by delta. This should imply mod fz is bigger than 1 by epsilon. This is the definition when your limit is infinity as z approaches infinity. So these three are the consequences we need to define the limit at infinity when limit is infinity and both cases are together. So this is when both first and second cases are together. And you also know that the definition is always if and only if condition. Definition is not one side, definition is both side. What about this? Limit z approaches minus 1 iota z plus 3 upon z plus 1. This is the example of Brown and Churchill book. So what can you say about this limit? Can I directly say it is limit? It is infinity, because what is happening? Limit z approaches minus 1. This lower part approaches 0, and this above part approaches 3 minus iota. So what can you say about this? Okay, let me define some more thing. Suppose z is a member of complex numbers. That means the infinity is not included till now. Z plus infinity is same as infinity plus z, same as z minus infinity is simply infinity. Either you add infinity or you subtract infinity, you are going to get infinity. I have already told you there is no minus infinity. So every minus infinity or plus infinity is simply a 1 infinity. If z is non-zero, you can define some more operations. Z into infinity is infinity. Z by infinity is 0, where z is some fixed complex number which is non-zero. Now, infinity minus infinity, 0 into infinity, infinity by infinity are not defined. So these three operations on infinity are not defined. So whenever we are getting this situation, we will assume our case is not defined. But we can take help of these two. So you try to observe this iota z plus 3, this approaches 3 minus iota. So 3 minus iota is obviously a non-zero number. And z plus 1, this is approaching 0. So by using this property, you can say this limit will approach simply infinity. Also, I can give you more criteria encountering this type of questions. Properties for limits are related to point at infinity. Property 1, limit z approaches z naught, fz is infinity if and only if limit z approaches z naught 1 upon fz is 0. You can take help of this also in the previous example. In this example, you can take help of this. You can check the limit of 1 upon fz will be 0, because if you interchange the denominator and numerator, your above part will go to 0 and below part is a non-zero complex number, so overall limit will be 0. And the proof is very easy. You go with the definition, you apply the definition of this and you can easily come to this, because you will have your mod of fz is bigger than 1 by epsilon. So you try to find the 1 upon fz. So you can go from this to this, you can go from, you can come from this statement to this statement. Limit z approaches z naught, or limit z tends to infinity, fz is w naught if and only if limit z approaches 0, f of 1 by z is w naught. If you are having a problem for dealing with the z tends to infinity, you can deal with the limit z approaches 0, f of 1 by z function. And this is very crucial part when I will be defining the singularities and most of the properties related to point at infinity, I will be encountering this property. So this is very crucial, how you interchange your z and 1 by z. So the proof is very clear to you. As z approaches infinity, that is 1 upon z will approach to 0. That we have seen if z, this 1 is a non-zero complex number. So when z is infinity, so 1 upon infinity will be 0. So your limit will be f at 0. Limit z approaches infinity, fz is equal to infinity if and only if limit z tends to 0. So when your limit is infinity, so what you do this, limit z tends to infinity, 1 upon fz is simply 0 according to this property. Now you use this property, limit z tends to infinity, how you interchange your limit z tends to 0. So if and only if limit z tends to 0, 1 upon f at 1 by z is 0. So these three statements are equivalent. So these are some basic properties related to point at infinity for the limits. Similarly, we can deal with the continuity also. But for continuity, we have to extend our complex plane, because at that point we have to define the function at point infinity. So you understand this part. Let me go little more. continuity. See, you know the real analysis part. So whenever someone is asking question from limit and continuity, it may not be interested in complex analysis, because the continuity and limits both are almost similar in the real case and in the complex case. So they may not ask the question from this section, but they will definitely encounter differentiability. The differentiability is totally different as on R as on R2. I will give you the explanation. So I will not go in deep for continuity. I will give you just statements and I will tell you how you can prove if you are interested. But according to me, you should not prove. They are not so much important, because they are related to topology part, they are related to real analysis part. The proofs are already you have done in your topology part or in your metric space part, I am assuming. Let F is defined from some domain D to C. We say F is continuous at Z0 belongs to D. In case of continuity, your Z0 should be a member of D. That means you should be able to define your function at point Z0. So this Z0 should be a member of domain. If for each epsilon positive, there exists a delta positive such that Fz minus Fz0 less than epsilon whenever mod z minus z0 less than delta. You should not write here 0 less than mod z minus z0, because you can include your z0 now in your domain. So this is the definition for the continuity. What is the what is the geometrical interpretation of this? It is almost similar to the limit and the real analysis part. So what it is saying, that is, if for each epsilon positive there exists a delta positive, what is the meaning of this? This Z is a member of the ball centered at Z0 with the radius delta. And what property you are having here? This Fz is a member of the ball centered at Fz0 with the radius epsilon. So you can see F of ball. Okay, let us try to observe in this manner. In the previous lectures, I just told you one wrong thing. This plane, that is the domain plane, I will assume this as a Z plane. I told you this is a C plane. This is not. This is just a Z plane. And the codomain plane is generally known as the W plane. So what you are doing, for each epsilon positive, there exists a delta positive. That means for each epsilon positive, there should exist a delta positive such that whenever this property is happening, you are having this property. So whenever you are choosing your Z0 here, so you take the ball of radius delta and then find the image of this ball, because you are choosing only those Z which are satisfying this property, and the Z which are satisfying this property are usually the member of this ball of radius delta centered at Z0. So you are choosing those Z only. So so you are finding a ball of a radius epsilon centered at Fz0. This is epsilon. So this ball is totally inside this ball, because whenever you are choosing Z from this ball, you are having your Fz is inside the ball of centered at Fz0 with radius epsilon. So this ball of radius delta centered at Z0 is totally inside ball centered at Fz0 with the radius epsilon. So this is the geometrical interpretation for the continuity. And also you know this definition. A function is continuous if inverse image of a open set is open, inverse image of a closed set is closed. So those definitions are acceptable in topology. So this is a particular case of topology. So those definitions are also applicable in the complex plane also. So if you do not know this definition, you can always define the definition related to open sets, because that is acceptable in topology, and this is a particular case of topology, because whenever you are having a metric, you are having a topology, because with respect to the metric you can define your open sets. So once you are able to define your open sets, you are having a topology. So each metric induces a topology, and that topology is known as the topology induces by the metric, but not every topology can be induced by metric. There are some topologies which cannot be induced by a metric. The example you must have studied in your topology part. So these statements are, I am telling you, because if you want to attempt the problems of CMI, you may need these types of statements. F is a function defined from D to C. If F is continuous or F is continuous at Z0, where Z0 you can think of X0 plus Iy0, where Z0 is a point of domain. If and only if Uxy and Vxy are continuous at x0 and y0, where fz is same as uxy plus ivxy. So u is the real part of your function f and v is your imaginary part of the function f. So you say your function is continuous at z0 if and only if the components are continuous at x0 and y0, and you know how to check the continuity for two variable. I am assuming that you have studied little bit of functions of several variable. Next statement, f and g be two functions defined from a D to C. F and g are continuous at z0 and alpha beta be two fixed complex numbers, then alpha f plus beta g is continuous at z0. So if f and g are continuous, then every linear combination of these two functions is again a continuous. So you can think if f and g, if you collect all the continuous functions, then that is going to form a space, and that is known as the function space, which is a collection of all continuous functions. We say this f and g is continuous, f and g are, we say f is continuous on D, that means if f is continuous at every point of D, then we say this f is continuous on D. Next, fg is continuous, their product is also continuous. Fg is continuous provided your g is non-zero throughout your domain, or you can say gz0 is non-zero. I should add this at z0, at z0. And one more property, if two functions are continuous at point z0, then their composition is continuous at z0 also. If the composition is defined, that means your fz is a member of the domain of G, but I have assumed my domain of G is D. So this f of z should be contained in T. That means the composition is well defined. Similarly, you can think for the f of g also. So composition of two continuous function is again continuous. Again, the proof are very easy. You have studied from your graduation part, from your undergraduation part. So proof I am skipping. The proof are directly straightforward. I will cover all the proofs which we need for complex analysis, not for the function of two variable or real analysis. I will not do those proof. Let f is a function from D to C and assume your D is closed and bounded region. So if it is closed and bounded region, that means it is my compact set. If f is continuous on D, that means f is continuous at every point of D. This implies mod f z is bounded, or you can say this fz is bounded in the sense of the modulus part. That is, there exists a positive real number. When I am writing a positive one, you should think that this is only a real number, because I cannot talk about the positive number on complex plane. I do not know which number is bigger than 0 or which number is lesser than 0. I cannot say. So this thing that this is meaningful, that m is a real number now, such that mod f z is less than or equal to m. And also, can I say there is at least one point where your fz or mod fz takes the value m? Can I say this? Okay, let us observe first. If you define mod fz part, then mod fz will be a modulus of u plus iota v, because your function will be of the format u plus iota v. So you can say this is u square plus v square. We are assuming this f is continuous. So what we are having, if f is continuous, then its components are continuous. That means your u is continuous, v is continuous. So this u square is continuous, v square is continuous. U square is non-negative, v square is non-negative. So their sum is also continuous, because we know from the algebra of limits, algebra of continuity, linear combination of two continuous function is again continuous. So u square plus v square is continuous. Both are non-negative, so their square root is meaningful. So their square root is again continuous function, and this function is on R2, because u square is defined from R2 to R, v square is defined from R2 to R. So this is again a continuous function, because both are non-negative. If it is negative, then it has a problem. But u square plus v square both are non-negative, so this is continuous. And every continuous function on a compact set attains its bounds. That means it will attain its maximum and minimum also. So not only I am saying there exists a z naught such that mod f z is equal to m, I am saying mod f z attains its maximum and minimum on the compact region D. So this I am saying. Also, one more thing I can say, fz is compact in C, because D is my compact set now, because it is closed and bounded region. So this is my compact set on complex plane, and we know that under continuity image of a compact set is compact. This I have proved for real analysis part, but I will skip the proof now, because the proof from complex part it is difficult, but from the topology part the proof is too easy. If you know the definition of compact space with respect to the open cover, you apply this definition, you will get your result within 3 or 4 lines. So you take any arbitrary cover of FD. This is just the sketch of proof if you want to do and you are comfortable with topology. Otherwise you will not be able to do this. So you take any arbitrary cover of the FD. FD is the collection of all range. That means you can say this is the range set. So you take any open cover of the this FD and try to find the finite subcover of that by using the property your D is compact. So you may have to use this property. Suppose you are choosing an open cover of FD, that means this can be covered by union of alpha G alpha, where alpha is varying some arbitrary family. So you have to construct some finite subcover of this. So what you will do, you try to arrive at this situation. So this you can think the inverse image of union of G alpha alpha will contain D because of this property. Now in the inverse you can write this as this also, union of alpha F inverse G alpha. So what you have done, you have actually, if you are having an open cover for FD, then you are having an open cover of D, but D is a compact set. D is a compact set. So this open cover will definitely have a finite subcover. So use that property and try to extract that finite subcover for FD. So this is just 2 or 3 line proof from the topology part. Similarly, you can write under continuity image of a connected set is connected. Again, the proof of this statement is very easy by using the topological property. So you use that the D is a connected set, then you will be able to prove the FD is connected. Just it will take 4 or 5 lines. The proof is very straightforward from the definition. But if you use your complex plane property, you may not be able to prove in 3 or 4 lines. It will take at least 1 or 2 pages. So those proofs are not required here. That is why I am not doing. So these are some consequences of the continuity. Let F is continuous at point Z0 for some Z0 in the domain D. What can you say about this? Fz bar, will it be continuous? The argument is very easy. See, whenever you are saying your Fz is continuous, that means your component functions, that means your u and v are continuous. And once your u and v both are continuous, you can think for this, what is Fz bar? This is u minus iota times v, which is same as u plus iota times minus v. So your u is already continuous. V is continuous, then negative times of v is also continuous, because minus 1 is simply a constant. So if v is continuous, minus v is also continuous. So u is continuous, minus v is continuous, hence your Fz bar is continuous. But this property is not true in case of the differentiability part. If Fz is differentiable, you cannot say your Fz bar is differentiable. I will come to that soon. Let me define the differentiability. And you may also think for, I have not defined the initial intermediate value property for the continuous function as we have defined in R. Because in R, what you do, you say this, your Fz is lying between B and A. So you say things like this in real analysis, but you think there is no less than or equal to in your complex numbers. So you cannot define your intermediate value property in complex plane. So this you cannot define. Now let me define the differentiability. You know the concept of differentiability in R. So there is no such the tangent definition on complex plane. You cannot find the curves easily in complex plane. So you cannot define that property. Let me define. Let F is defined let F is a function from D to C we say z naught belongs to D, f is differentiable at z naught belongs to D, or some people say this f is complex differentiable if limit z tends to z naught fz minus fz naught z minus z naught exists. So whenever this limit exists, we say the function is differentiable at point z naught, and if this limit exists, we denote this number as a f dash z naught as limit z approaches z naught fz minus fz naught upon z minus z naught, and this number is called the derivative of the function at point z naught. So this is the derivative symbol. You can use this notation also. This is the Leibniz symbol. This df by dz is known as the Leibniz symbol. So this is the most basic definition for the differentiability. Somewhere it will work fluently, but somewhere you may not be able to use this property directly. You use this definition directly because you may stuck at some complicated problems. So we will be dealing some nice property for the differentiability for the complex functions. Now the complication will start, because till now you haven't felt any complication in complex analysis, but from this part the complication will start. You have to be very clear, you have to be from very basic. Let me give you one example so that you feel little comfortable. Fz is equal to z bar. So give me the points on the complex plane where your function is differentiable. Just be simple. Limit z approaches z naught fz minus fz naught upon z minus z naught. If this limit exists for some z naught, then we say the function is differentiable at those z naught. So we are trying to see whether this limit exists at any z naught or not. If it exists, then what are those z naught? So we try to extract those z naught. So this is limit z minus z naught. This fz will be, I can say this is z bar minus z naught bar upon z minus z naught, z minus z naught. I am claiming that the limit does not exist for any z naught. See how this z is a complex number, this z naught is a complex number. So you want to reach at your z naught in any way you have, because in a real part you are having only two directions, minus negative side or positive side, that is the left hand side and right hand side. But in complex you are having uncountably many directions, so you can reach from any direction. Set your z as x naught comma y, that is from the imaginary direction. What is it? This is x naught plus iy. So what you will do, your z naught is simply x naught comma y naught in Cartesian coordinate. This is x naught plus iota y naught. So you want to reach z naught from z. So this is limit y approaches y naught. So your z bar will be, z bar is x plus iota y, but you are choosing your z to be x naught plus iy. So this is x naught plus iy minus z naught bar. It will be x naught plus, because z bar will be x naught minus iota y naught. Okay, this is negative. So if you open the bracket, you will have, this is a plus, and this is x naught plus iota y naught minus x naught. Sorry, this is y minus iota y naught. So what you are having, this, wait for a while. This is x naught minus iy from this, and negative of x naught minus iota y naught. So it is y naught. Now this will get cancelled out. This x naught and x naught will get cancelled out. You can take iota common here, then you will have, okay, you write just only iy minus iy naught, and here you are having minus iy plus iy naught. So this will give you minus 1. So from this direction you are reaching at minus 1. Now you change your direction, you choose this to be x comma y naught. So you are keeping your imaginary part as y naught, and you are moving through real part, through in the direction of the real part you are moving. So you will have a limit x approaches x naught, your z bar is x plus iota y, z is x plus iy, and z bar will be x minus iota y, but your z is x y naught. So this is x minus iota y naught, this is x naught plus iota y naught, this is x plus iy naught, and this is x naught minus iy naught. So this will get cancelled out, this will get cancelled out, this is x minus x naught, this is x minus x naught, so you are getting 1. So if you are moving through this direction you are getting minus 1, you are moving through this direction you are getting 1, that means limit does not exist. And this z naught is arbitrary point, I have not taken a particular point, I have taken an arbitrary point. So you say does not exist for any z naught, hence this function is nowhere differentiable. This function is nowhere differentiable. In further lectures I will give you another criteria for the differentiability and analyticity. If your function is of the format in the form of z and z bar, if you partially differentiate your function with respect to z bar, and if you are not getting 0, your function is not differentiable. I will simply claim that in the upcoming in the next 2 or 3 lectures I will give you a way. If your del f over del z bar is non-zero, then your function is not differentiable, just a simple way. This is a very strong condition. What about this function? This is a simple one. Fz is equal to mod z square. You must have done in your undergraduation or graduation. Whenever you have studied complex differentiability, you know this. Okay, but before coming to this, let me give you one more criteria. If you define this function from R2 to R2, f at x comma y is going to x comma minus y. If you are defining this function, whether this function is differentiable or not, you have studied function of several variable. So you are having this function. This function is differentiable if and only if each coordinate function is differentiable. But you observe each coordinate function is a polynomial. So this function is infinitely many times differentiable. There should be no doubt in this. So this function is infinitely many times differentiable. So this is differentiable. But if you think this as a complex function, then your range will be, you can say your z is equal to z bar, because what is this? This is x minus iota y. So you cannot say if you are dealing your fz, if you change your z to the z x plus iota y, then your function will be of the format f at x comma y. If that function is differentiable, you cannot say your original function is differentiable. So from this you cannot say this function is going to be differentiable. The example we have seen, the argument we have seen. This differentiability is known as the Freichet differentiability. This is known as Freichet differentiability. And this differentiability is known as the complex differentiability. So your Freichet differentiability does not imply the complex differentiability. This function is infinitely many times differentiable at every point, but this function is nowhere differentiable, that we have seen. Now this fz is equal to mod z square. So you have studied this example according to me. If you have studied complex differentiability ever, we know a function is differentiable when at point z naught, when limit z approaches z naught, fz minus fz naught upon z minus z naught exists. we say this. Can I use this? Del z is equal to z minus z naught. In the real analysis, what you do, you define your h to be x minus x naught, and you take your h to be a positive one. But in this scenario, you cannot choose your delta z to be positive because z minus z naught is a complex number. So there is no guarantee that it is positive or negative. So you are defining a difference. Z minus z naught is same as delta z. So if you replace this, then you can see this. This is equivalent to this limit exists equivalently the limit z del z approaches 0, because when z approaches z naught, your del z will definitely approach 0. So limit del z approaches 0, f z naught plus del z minus f z naught upon del z exists. Can I use this criteria? This is again a very powerful tool for the differentiability purpose. So you assume let z naught be any complex number, and we are finding the condition on z naught so that this limit exists or this limit exists. So limit delta z approaches 0, f z naught plus del z minus f z naught upon del z, and we are assuming this limit exists. So we are trying to find the restriction on z. So it will be limit del z approaches 0, f z naught plus del z, according to this function, this will be z naught plus del z square minus mod z naught square upon del z. Now you can use a square minus b square formula, or you may open this formula. You are going to get same thing. Let us use this thing. Limit del z approaches 0, z naught plus del z mod whole square, you can write in this manner. Z naught plus del z, z naught plus del z in the bar, this is same, minus mod z naught square upon del z. So what you are going to get? Limit del z approaches 0, this will give you mod z square, but mod z square will get cancelled out with this. So I will have z naught del z bar plus del z z naught bar minus del z bar. And also for defining this, you need one more thing. This should not be a 0. If it is 0, there is no meaning to define this, because your del z will not be defined, or sorry, this function will not be defined. So you are having this thing, limit del z approaches 0, you are dividing this to this, this to this, this to this. So what you are having? You are having this z naught del z bar upon del z plus z naught bar minus del z bar. See, as del z approaches 0, your this part will approach 0, this will approach at a z naught bar, but this part will create a problem. So what can I say for this part? I can leave this part because they will not give me any problem, but I am in trouble when I am having this. I have already seen this del z bar upon del z, at del z approaches 0, this limit does not exist. In the previous part, when I work with the z bar, so I arrived at the condition z bar minus z naught bar, z minus z naught at as limit of z approaches z naught. This does not exist. So this is similar to this, because if you open del z, what is del z? This is a z bar minus z naught bar, this is a z minus z naught, and limit z approaches z naught if you remove your del z. So this is similar to this example, and this limit does not exist. But we want this limit to be exist for this function to be differentiable. So at what point it can exist? This is exist when your z0 is 0. If you choose your z0 to be 0, then this limit will definitely exist, and if your z0 is other than 0, this limit will never exist. So this will force your z0 has to be 0. If z0 is other than 0, this limit will not exist ever. Hence, this function is differentiable only at the origin. This function is not differentiable. But if you try to observe the real function, suppose you are defining this function fx is equal to mod x square, which is simply x square. This function is infinitely many times differentiable, and this function is differentiable at every point, whereas this function is differentiable only at 0. So you cannot relate your complex property with the real property, because real differentiability is different, complex differentiability is different. But once you are comfortable with complex differentiability and complex properties, you will be very comfortable in this topic. You may easily get do a good score in any exam. So I am stopping now. In the next lecture, we will continue this differentiability property, and we will try to move to the analyticity part. Thanks for watching this lecture.